Strategy Toolbox. The Strategy Toolbox is where we're building a collection of ideas and strategies and best practices that will help you build language and content simultaneously. We know that you're in the classroom day after day, and sometimes you just get in a rut and you're thinking, oh, they're just not getting it. Like, what's another way that I can do this, because like I'm bored with this, or they're struggling with this, or I'm struggling with this. And so we have our toolbox of growing strategies. What I really hope is that the membership community will also contribute and share strategies that they're finding to be successful with students in the classroom. Because at English Learner Portal, we don't pretend to know every strategy and know it all. There are so many different students, so many different teachers that you just need a bank to pull from. So let me show you in our strategy toolbox. Let me share my screen here for you. Right here inside the membership site, we have our 7 categories that we're talking about, but we're going to start here in the strategy toolbox. And there are a lot of different options that we're building here, but today I want to highlight the active listening guides. We first learned about active listening guides from Dr. Kate Kinsella years ago, another oldie but a goodie. And we use them in our workshops quite often to model the strategy. And I wanted to show you one. There's a whole list here of active listening guides for you to download and use. The point of an active listening guide is to structure students in their participation in processing content. So we always follow the same flow, because it's very important that we get the language and content in a certain order so that students can be more successful in the end. So we start with listening. On this one is a sample that was submitted to us by one of our colleagues, Becky Guzman. And she created this to go about teaching the Quartering Act. So the Quartering Act, that would be language of social studies. Draw one thing you learned. So in this lesson, this active listening guide, we're targeting a little bit lower of a proficiency level, because we don't really want them to take the time to take notes. We want them to draw sketch notes. Just draw a couple things that you get from whether it's a lecture, video, however it is you're teaching the Quartering Act. Then once we go through that, we want to teach students that take a moment to self-reflect, think about what you learned, and jot down something you want to remember. And because they're lower proficiency students we're targeting, we are providing the sentence starter for them. So the Quartering Act required that colonists provide. That's pretty sophisticated language. So of course we're going to have to talk them through, what is require, what are the colonists, what is provide, but in the end, I do want them to use the academic language. So I'm going to hold them to that, but I can rephrase it and restate it and explain it as we go. So the students will work on their sentence. I will, help them as they go, help them think about what to write, help them get their ideas down. Then once they've had time to play with the language and think about it and reflect on the content, now it's time to partner talk. And we want to make that accountable. So there is something they have to fill out. They have to record an idea that their partner shared. And the partners can work together to make sure they both get the ideas recorded. And then I want them to practice together repeating that idea. So again, we're repeating the academic language over and over and over. We're staying focused on content, but yet we are making sure there's some rigor in the language as well. Once the partners have time to discuss and talk and get their ideas down, then we move to report, where we do whole group share out or table share outs first, then whole group share outs. And this is where, again, we have repetition, repetition, repetition of the content and the language, making sure that when students are reporting out, they are using their sentence starters, they're using the right vocabulary, and they are sounding academic and sophisticated. And they love that. They love sounding smart. This one has a little reminder that in this case, the quarters is a multiple meaning word. So quarters in this means, housing, versus quarters they might know about in money. So there's a little reminder there that would help the discussion. In the end, our goal is that we always want students to be able to write about content. It's on every assessment. It's something that takes a long time to develop, so we want to make sure we practice that in a structured way as often as possible, providing a lot of the supports. So in this one, after all of that discussion and conversation, hopefully cementing the ideas in those certain pieces of language, then I want them to reflect in writing, share their feelings, summarize that discussion. In this one, I left it a little open that you could use the frames or you can create your own paragraph depending on how comfortable they are at that point. There might be some of my students that need even more structure, where I might need to sit with them and work through this together. But in the end, they will talk about how they feel, putting some ideas together, getting more toward the discourse level for language. And then hopefully we'll have a few confident students who can read theirs out loud. We can practice with partners. And so we get some fluency and discourse, and again, repetition of that language and content. So there's an example of some of the things that are available in our strategy toolbox. There are templates for various listening guides. One we've used for professional development, other ones we've used with students. And this is definitely a place where we can start collecting from everyone who uses the strategy, who's willing to share theirs. So there's our sneak peek for today into the strategy toolbox, and we will see you again soon for another tip.